All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your lunch and company. We've had a great day so far, and it's now time for our second keynote speaker of the day. You saw a video about her organization. Now you hear more about her story. Please welcome the new Chief Digital Health and Analytics Officer for Humana, Heather Cox.
Thank you. I'm all mic'd up. I'm good. Thanks. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Super thrilled to be here today. Really want to spend some time talking about what we as a community can do to really empower digital and organizational transformation for our workforce. And want to give you some specific examples of what we at Humana are doing to really drive this focus around technology, around digital health in particular, but really how that's being driven by data and analytics and the importance of how you bring all of these skill sets together to really focus on driving that transformation. And it's about recruiting talent, yes, without question, but it's also about upskilling and reskilling the talent we have and making sure we're keeping our workforce current as well. So it's a two-pronged strategy. It's very important to the success of our business, and it's really important because it's the way that we want to serve our members and to make life for our providers, our physicians, our nurse practitioners, our nurses, our caregivers at large, how we make their lives better, simpler, easier in the service of our members over time. And so this is a critical junction for us in healthcare, right? Things have changed pretty dramatically in the last several years. And when you think about the digital transformation writ large happening in the world, just how we're all starting to change and live our lives slightly differently than we used to in the past because of those little supercomputers in our pocket, things are starting to change in healthcare as well. And we, companies like Humana and many others, need to respond in a fundamentally different way. But the only way to get there is through our people and to make sure they're prepared for the massive change ahead. That's it. I got my clicker here. Well, we'll get there. I guess my clicker is not working. It's on. Okay, turn it back on again. There we go. All right. So digital technology and this transformation, why is it important? What's happening to tell us why is it such a critical element to any company's success? You could argue, hey, we've been successful for the past 50 years. We've reinvented ourselves a few times. We'll be great just on the revenue model and trajectory we're on. And the answer is yes, but again, back to this changing behaviors that we're starting to see in the marketplace. And even more frightening is not only the changing behaviors, but the changing actual activities. People, expectations have risen, but the behaviors and the activities are starting to shift as well. And people at all ages are starting to want and do things differently. And if we don't respond in kind, we will be left behind. And people will no longer choose Humana as their first option for their care when others can provide it in a more seamless, frictionless way at their fingertips when and how they want. Because showing up to the doctor's office or showing up in the ER isn't the preferred way to get your service anymore. And we have to be rethinking that model up and down. And so this concept of democratizing data and insights, why does that matter? It matters because digital has become a data business. So for many years, we companies have been running this digital thing over here and this data and analytics thing over here. And sometimes we let them kind of merge, and it's kind of interesting to see what you learn from them when you put them together. But the reality is what's happened is the big tech companies, let's call them for what they are, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons of the world that you hear about all the time, have fundamentally changed the game. They use data to make every decision their business revolves around. And they use data to drive every experience they create for their consumers. And so the data is actually what creates the digital experience itself. And so unlocking these insights is a really important part of the game, but it's not so easy to do. And I'm going to talk to you about kind of this integration piece as we go through, but creating the experiences, especially when you're a company that comes a little more from the old world economy, a company like ours that's been around for more than, let's call it 15 years. That's any of us, a lot of us in the room, I'm sure. you've been around for a while, it's very hard to really reshift from kind of siloed vertical businesses into horizontal experiences that make it very easy for your customers, or in our case, our members, to actually engage in our systems. So unlocking those insights, critical. Driving those personalized experiences, why does that matter? Again, applying that data, showing that we know who you are, and that we understand what your past has been with us, and then can start to predict what your future might need to be with us. That data flow is really important, and you're starting to want to know that you have a relationship with us, and darn it, you expect us to understand what your history has been. That if you've had an incident in the recent past, let's call it you had to be admitted to the hospital for an acute issue, and you now are back at home and everything's fine, and you need to make a phone call to us, you expect us to understand what has transpired. You expect us to understand that data flow, and you expect us to be able to answer your questions. That's a logical expectation. We better be there. I would like to say, yes, we are. We are there today. But we need to get predictive in what we think you're going to need next, and how do we present to you before you even have to call us. We think this is probably what you're going to need next from Humana. It's what Amazon does. Before you even, it gets a little scary sometimes, right? You're getting notices on what you need before you even know you need it. And then you, darn it, you click it and you buy it, right? That's where the world is headed, and so this is really critical for us. And then reinvesting through innovation. We have got to, when we find particular insights, still have the capacity to reinvest in the next great capability, next great service. We can't be completely filled in our innovation, in our pipeline of product development, so much so that we can never reinvest and constantly innovate. This is a mistake that we big companies sometimes make, is we don't leave enough room for that throughput of innovation, that constant iteration on innovation. And so it's such an important part, and that's a really important key when you start to talk about your talent. So not only do people want to be inspired by interesting, great work and finding those insights and being able to apply it and to build new product and services, but they also want to know that they're going to have the opportunity to innovate and apply their creativity in new and interesting ways. And as we start to talk about workforce and attracting talent and retaining talent, having the capacity to let them engage in interesting work and giving them that free capacity of thought is a really important part of a retention tool. And this is one where we've got to make sure we're creating the right space for our employees. So, interesting macro trends we need to be talking about, right? So, digital transformation is critical, it's key. I think we all get it. It's important for companies, it's important for communities, it's important for all of us. But the macro trends, what do they look like? 14 billion times a day, we Americans are staring at our smartphones. On average, per person, that comes down to 52 times a day, you pick up that thing and look at it. Shocking. Kind of makes your stomach hurt a little bit. And 39% of us say it's too much, and yet we keep doing it. And this number has nearly doubled in the last 2 years. I don't see it going down, right? That computer in your pocket has become almost the primary way you access online information when you're sitting at home. You no longer go into your office and sit down at the computer and log in. You use that device as your anywhere connection point. And so this is something to be thinking about as you're thinking about your talent of tomorrow. And you think about the tools you have in your workplace. You don't get to just have the simple old tools of yesteryear and think it's going to work. You have to continue to modernize your environment. Workplace, work tools. Now let's talk a little bit about the macro trend that's happening that is kind of the one that's consuming all of us in some way, shape, or form. AI, artificial intelligence. This is a really important one because in all of mankind, history of mankind, there has been no faster adoption curve of technology ever. So if you look at all of the major technology advancements in the last 40 years and the adoption curve, some of them, like the computer itself, years in the making, decades in the making, AI, the curve in the last 5 years, has already surpassed what has happened over decades for other technology. This is the way of the future. Why is it going so fast? Right? Artificial intelligence has been around since the late 60s. It's been around forever. But there was a massive tipping point here, call it 24, 30 months ago. And it's when computers could recognize human language more effectively than the human ear and the human brain. It hit a tipping point. And all of a sudden now, artificial intelligence could be applied in a very commercial way. Natural language processing had hit. And so what does that mean? Things like Alexa and Google Home start showing up in mass, right? Siri on the iPhone's been around forever, but that natural language, it couldn't actually catch you very well. And IVRs, those things you call on the phone when you get to call big companies and you hate so much, and you never understand what you say, and you got to keep saying it over and over, and you're so frustrated. That's because the technology just wasn't there when those things got implemented. Close, but not close enough. That tipping point hit. And now we're seeing artificial intelligence rapidly advancing. 1. 2, you also have the massive technology companies coming in with compute power, right? And speed of that compute power, as well as cost effectiveness. Those 3 things unlock all kinds of opportunity for application of artificial intelligence. And so you now have this boom. What's interesting is where you see it across multiple industries, including healthcare, because you can see the statistics here. It's pretty impressive. Massive amounts of savings potential in healthcare over the next 8 years, if applied appropriately. I would argue in healthcare, you're going to see it in a lot of automation of rote activities and opportunities to clean up processing and claims processing in areas like it. It's not going to happen on the front end of patient delivery necessarily. Why? Because in healthcare, the obvious, there are human lives at stake. And so what you're going to see, though, is a pocket of AI that's going to be really, really important. You have 2 ends of the spectrum. You have supervised learning and unsupervised learning. The unsupervised learning is where you get the massive potential and all the automation and all the scary stuff that people talk about, right? There are some parts of the world where that's going to be very applicable. In healthcare, it's going to be supervised. And it's going to stay smaller and focused because of the impact, of course, on human lives. But it doesn't mean there's not massive potential. And again, the dollars here that are at stake is really incredible. And just so you know, in the US is the global leader right now in artificial intelligence. You've got Asia right behind, driven by China and, quite frankly, India. And then Europe is probably the most nascent, just given their privacy and data rules. And I think that'll break open at some point because that technology is going to be too important to various industries, but they're balancing 2 different challenges. But the US is the leader, so it's important for us to understand this technology and the importance to all of our businesses. Technology trends specifically in healthcare that we care about. This is pretty interesting. You see it happening, all the tools. Not all the tools. Many tools exist, right? The technology is already there for us to do some really cool and amazing things in healthcare. There's already the Bluetooth-enabled fork that will count how many times you've put the fork to your mouth. Why is that important? Because if you're a diabetic, it'll actually help you pace how fast you're eating, which could actually help you control your condition. It's a really important tool potentially, right? So you have a smart fork. Everything in your home by year 2025 is projected to be smart in some way, shape, or form. Everything will have a chip. Whether you turn on that chip or not and connect it and get the data from it will be your choice. But if you're buying a refrigerator right now, there's a good chance it's a smart refrigerator that could tell you exactly when you need to order your orange juice or not. It'll just order it for you from Amazon Fresh and have it delivered to your door because your credit card's already on file. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Right? But when you start thinking about these connected ecosystems and what it could mean for your lifestyle and then your health, it's quite impactful. And you start to think about age 65 plus. So Humana is primarily focused on Medicare Advantage. And so we have a heavy senior population. And so we take care of a very important part of the population in the US. And people will say, oh, but they don't care about technology. I don't know. My mom, she's a nut on her phone. She won't put it down. Like, I think she's way over the 52 average times a day. But look at what this statistic. Among the 65 plus, wearables adoption has grown by 264%, the fastest growing population for wearables. Why? Because it tells you things about your heart rate, how much you slept last night. You know, it can give you information about your activity, the number of steps. And soon, right, when you have an Apple Watch, it'll also pull in data, your Apple Health data, right? So you have all kinds of now this ecosystem that can live and breathe with you. And think about, again, the lifestyle information you can start to collect so you can live a better, healthier, more balanced life. And by the way, just looking a little around the corner, as you start to collect that data and you start to bring in your medical, more of your clear medical data into that realm, think about the other apps you use and how it can start connecting the data inter-app, and suddenly it'll start creating food plans for you. We know what your conditions are. We have all of your daily data. We know what food you shop because you order it all through Whole Foods on Amazon. We can probably come up with a really nice plan for how you should eat a little bit better. And we can show you exactly what it is and how much it's going to cost you, and we can put you on that really nice budgeted tool plan. This is where the world is going if you so choose. We have to be there with it, but we need the talent who can help us think through the implications of this world. Now, I will tell you, out in Silicon Valley, they got all kinds of people trying to solve these problems every day, and they have nothing to do with a healthcare background. They're just really bright, intelligent people looking to solve really hard problems, and they love doing it. And they use technology to go after it, and they take data, and they study the data, and they find the insights, and they build a product to solve for the gap. And consumers love it. They absolutely love it. You do. Your children do, your grandchildren do. We have to compete. I'm not ready to concede that it's California that's going to solve all the problems of the world. We have folks who can do it here. Here in Louisville, we have other sites around the country. But our network of really brilliant folks can solve these problems too, and you want to know why? Because we actually have the subject matter experts who really understand what our members and what our providers need. So our subject matter expertise, combined with the right talents and the right skills, working in the right kinds of environment, we think we can actually win. Combine that with a mission-driven organization like Humana, and we really have a great value proposition. And you start to see how all these pieces can come together to, again, attract, retain, develop talent, but you also have to make sure you're really driving toward that transformation. Because again, if we stay on our current track and just say we're going to do business like we've always done, how are we going to get people excited about the future? So what does this mean in Louisville? So when you look at our workforce here in Louisville, we've got 40% of our folks who've been with our company for more than 10 years. That's fantastic. It's an amazing metric. And I've recently joined Humana, still relatively new. I'm just over the 100-day mark, not that I'm counting. But I look at the tenure of the folks that we have, and it's probably one of the greatest gifts we have for this organization, is the deep subject matter expertise. And how we bring that to bear and combine it with the new skills we want to bring in is our huge opportunity. When you look at our technology function, our second largest population of employees work in a technology in IT or an IT-related field. So like in my organization, digital health and analytics. So this is pretty powerful. The next largest is our customer service organization at about 30% of the population. So we are a true employer of technology-driven talent. This is a really important thing. And I would argue that most companies are going to need to start thinking in terms of how do you get that technology realm, even whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or a multinational global corporation, you've got to have the same kind of makeup of employee. And then 30% of our new digital health and analytics organization is here in Louisville. And I want to hit something head on because we did make an announcement about Studio H and our next evolution in Boston. And we are building in Boston, but it's very much an and strategy. This is about making sure we can have talent in multiple places. And just so you know, we're rebranding. We have this digital experience center that's here in Louisville, which has been just cutting edge for how we think about building in the new world. And some of the coolest, funkiest, I have more tattoos and mohawks and colored hair in my digital experience center than anybody else in our company. They are the coolest folks, and they really do amazing work. But we're going to rebrand them Studio H, and then we have a center in Dallas and in San Diego that are also Studio H. And so we have a network of innovation centers we're creating around the company and around the country. So it's very exciting for us, but 30% of those employees will be here. And this is still the core of how we think about everything that we do here in Louisville. And so what does this mean for us as a community? Right? So Thomas Jefferson, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. And so what is it going to take for us to make sure that this community, this region, really can be an epicenter for health tech? I was talking to the mayor earlier. You have some amazing activity happening here, but how do we start to cement that? It can't be single companies doing their own thing. There actually needs to be a public-private kind of partnership. What are we all going to do to put our skin in the game to make sure that this region can really make this work? Because there's no reason why, with the kind of grounding we already have and the foothold we already have, that we can't make this much more an epicenter for health tech and the future of longevity and aging. And there's a real opportunity for us. We know we can attract the talent in mass. We're showing you the numbers. It's possible. We know we can upskill and reskill an existing workforce. We are in the process of doing it. It's possible. More people at Humana will have the skill sets that we need across engineering, both software and data engineering, across human-centered design, another very important set of skills, right? Across data science. And there's various schemes, and along the spectrum of data science, there are lots of different skill sets you need there, but making sure you have the data science skill set. You know, the core skill sets that go into having really innovative mindset. I heard folks talking about the importance of innovation and the school system really stepping in and helping teach kids those skills. So critical. You know why? Because it breaks you out of the box of how you think, and it forces you to problem solve differently. These are skill sets we need. And it's not, again, it's not just about IT. It is about problem solving in a fundamentally different way, leveraging technology. And I'm telling you, if 12-year-olds can sit down at their desk and 15-year-olds can go out to the garage and code, this ain't rocket science. Sometimes you need some of those folks on the team, but sometimes you just need creativity and people who are willing to go after it and to talk to the end consumer to see what they need. It's about finding unmet needs and solving for it. And when you put a couple really those rocket scientists around the table to help you, that's fine, but not everybody has to be there. It's more about engaging and building a relationship and understanding what our members need from us, what our providers need from us. And when we actually sit down and ask them the questions, they can tell us what they need. But if we try to build something and throw it at them, like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Unfortunately, again, and I'm not saying this is Humana, I come from financial services, and I know we did this all the time. We had these great ideas and these beautiful products that, of course, everybody's going to want to buy. And we go into a room and we design them and we put them out in the market, and when they fail, we blame it on marketing. We never stop to think that, wow, consumers never actually wanted that. We just didn't have enough marketing dollars. But the reality is, the people who are winning with consumers today are out talking to them before they ever build a single thing. They're asking them what they need. They're asking them what's missing in their life. And they're not asking for like the everything. They're asking for like, what's that one little insight I can get from you? And they build for it. And they make that one little thing really good. And then they make the next little thing right next to it really good. And they iteratively develop it and bring it to you, and they make it better every few weeks, every few months. It gets better and better and better until you're hooked. That's the gift of what these technology companies are teaching us. But that's why I also know we can compete. We just need to teach people the same skills and create the same kind of environments where we can attract that kind of talent and retain that kind of talent. And there's a work environment, but there's also a technology environment. So folks, this is also important. There's this thing called the cloud. That's really scary to most people. It's really not that scary. There's a place where you have to learn how to build. People need to learn how to build in the cloud and understand the tools that are available in the cloud. But you can't be afraid of the cloud. You've got to hire folks to come in and teach you how to make sure your business can process in the cloud, because if you're going to want to hire and attract this talent, those are the tools they need to be successful. And if you don't have those environments where they can build and get to data quickly and iterate and move quickly, they're going to leave. So you need to have the right work environment, and you have to have the right technology environment so that people can move with the speed and precision they're looking for. Because if you don't, they will go to those technology companies and they'll go get that for themselves. Or they'll go start their own company in the garage where they have their credit card, and for $500 they can order all the compute power they want to compete with us companies. And they'll do it themselves. So we've got to figure out how to retool our companies to make sure we have the right place for people to do their best work. Now, I would also say we have to build platforms on which to do that. And so when you think about, as I said, as I came in, the Summer Works program, and what this region has done to build that program over the last few years, that's the kind of feeder system. When you think about what's happening in the school system, that's the kind of feeder system you have got to create so that over time you have this pipeline, this natural pipeline. So that's not a tomorrow answer, but it's a really important long-term solution to getting to where we need to be. And so Humana, right now we have 25 interns through the Summer Works program. We had 5 people we hired into our college internship after a summer program. This is a big deal. But how do we get those numbers up bigger and bigger? And how does every company represented here find a way to bring in 1 intern if you haven't had any, bring in 2 if you had 1, like try to figure out ways how we double the number of kids we bring through the process. How do we challenge ourselves to do that? Because they need, if we're going to recruit kids into the Summer Works program, they need a place to go. And they need a chance to learn some skills. So they have a chance to move into an internship program when they're in college, and then they have a chance to get a job once they're done, either with the companies they were with or someone else. But the more we can do to invest in those kind of platforms for the long run, the better chance we have at real sustainability of talent. And so I would argue what you guys are trying to do and accomplish here, again, it's not a tomorrow answer, but when you look a decade down the road, it will have fundamentally changed the talent profile for the region and for the companies who are here. And quite frankly, it could be a huge selling tool for the mayor and others to get companies to come here. Back to that, how do we become an epicenter for health tech? How do we become a core glue, a place where people want to come, like Nashville has become, quite frankly, Memphis. Like there are other cities who are doing it right now. They're figuring it out. How do we do the same thing here? That kind of a platform becomes really intriguing for the long-term game for companies. I know I'm going to have a perpetual talent pipeline because of what the schools are doing, what the companies there are committed to, and how they're developing long-term talent. That's our opportunity. So when you think about empowering your organization, right, think about the mission. Think about what you want to go after. And you start from the customer. Understand what your customers are looking for, what they need, and make sure that you can break down your silos across your organization. Part of the mission for the digital health and analytics team at Humana is to take down any silos and build these agile teams. You hear about the 2 pizza teams. We have all the great words. The 2 pizza teams, the whole notion is if it takes more than 2 pizzas to feed that team, your team is too big. So you got to have small teams that have all kinds of disciplines sitting around the table, and that team needs to be able to exist on their own to build a product. And they have to be empowered to make the decisions to get the job done. And so it's engineering, it's digital, it's design, it's analytics teams, and it's a business as a subject matter expert. So even if your business isn't a digital business today, you bring in that person who really knows what they're doing and understands what the customers need and pair them with that talent and let them go build your product. That's a winning proposition. Get your troops moving, right? Create the targets and actually move your capital. If you're not moving your investment dollars towards real transformation activity, you can talk about it all day long and you're not going to make any progress. And so really reallocating, even if you have that big project you started 2 years ago, and boy, if you started it 2 years ago, you might as well shut it down because it's real relevant now. The world has moved past you. Big IT programs, multi-generational project. If you hear multi-generational, you want to run the other way. They're taking too long, and it's going to cost you too much money, and the world has pivoted somewhere else. So think about how you think about your capital allocation and start putting it toward the technologies of today and tomorrow, not the technologies of the past. And when you think about how you booster yourself, focus on your talent, right? Identify the skills that are really going to help you get to the next place. Again, around this digital transformation focus. And make sure you're recruiting for them. But I plead with you, we have to also upskill and reskill our existing employees. Because the biggest mistake we can make in digital transformation is leaving the existing folks behind because they don't have the skill sets we need. I think it's our social responsibility to make sure they start to get the skill sets they need. That includes all of us, right? Folks, we get that iPhone or whatever phone you're carrying around, and how often do you download a new operating system? Every couple months, right? You get that notice, I got to download a new operating system. Guess what you all need to do? Download a new operating system. We all need to be in learning mode. None of us can sit still. None of us have the relevant skills. I don't have the relevant skills today. I'm trying to learn. I gave up a few years ago believing I had it all and I figured out how to make it all work. I'm back in learning mode. I've got 24-year-olds who mentor me, show me how to do things, teach me. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, show me that thing. I might run this area. I don't know what the heck that was. How did you do that? Like, right? You just have to be vulnerable and ask the questions and be willing to learn. But if you don't show that vulnerability, none of your employees ever will. And nobody will ever feel like they can ask the questions and learn something new. So start modeling the behavior, let your employees model the behavior, and then let people learn. And then if you're on an old IT system, figure out how to obfuscate it and put something new over the top. Doesn't mean throw everything out, just find a way to modernize yourself because it's going to be really important to your success. So I urge you to think about digital transformation, not because it's the cool, hip, new thing to do. It's the survival of your company, number one. It's the survival of probably of our communities because it's the way we're going to bring new people and new blood and a fresh pipeline of folks to this entire region. And it's how we're going to keep things fresh and ready to go, and it's how we can revitalize. So this is an important opportunity for companies like us. We are seizing it. It's not always easy. In fact, you run into a brick wall every single day. So ready, set, run into it again tomorrow. Get back up and run back into it again. But you have to, because it's the right thing to do for you, for your employees, and for the future of folks who want to live here and thrive here. So with that, I'd love to open it up to some questions. All right. What examples can you give of companies that excel at upskilling existing workers? I'll give you an example of a company that I was used to work with. Capital One is a financial services company, started as a credit card company up in Northern Virginia. Capital One does an exceptional job of upskilling and reskilling and constantly investing in their talent. It's part of their core model when they recruit people. And in fact, their CEO starts with, we're a talent company first and foremost. And with great talent comes great strategies, and as long as we are focused on hiring the best people all the time, I worry about nothing else. And so it doesn't mean they haven't had to downsize or shift strategies or anything else, but for the people who are with them, they constantly invest and reinvest in those people to make sure they have the most current skills. And so this has just got to be a core part of how you think about, like, you have an IT strategy and a constant refresh budget there. It's something we've got to start thinking about with our employees, a constant refresh budget, not just a training budget that gets cut when the first time you need to make cuts somewhere, right? What's the first thing? Oh, travel and training. Let's cut that out, right? That's probably the last thing you should be cutting. The investment in your people probably needs to stay top. Scariest part of the digital revolution. So what literally keeps me up at night is the gravitational pull of business as usual. What does that mean? It's just so much easier to get stuck in exactly what you're doing today. And by the way, everybody says they clamor for change. Oh, we want change. Oh my gosh, change is so great. Until change hits you. And you actually have to do something different. And then all of a sudden, changing is so fun, and I don't want to do that. And then suddenly, change doesn't want to move, and then we go back to doing work just as we always have. And that, it's easy. Change is hard because you can't see what's going to come. And it gets to be very scary. What's great about what you do right now, it's very predictable. It may be boring, but it's predictable. And when you start to get nervous and scared and it's ambiguous, what do you want? You want predictability. So gravitational pull of business as usual is the scariest part of this, because then you will fail. And then you're on a path to a terminal node, and that's called end. Your business will go out. Something will happen, and your business model will implode. It's going to happen. Look across the various industries and tell me it hasn't happened. I'm not going to say Best Buy, that's not fair. Blockbuster, no, Best Buy's almost out of business. Blockbuster, Netflix. Entire industries have been thrown out the window because they refuse to change their business model. This is a really important one. Do you have internship opportunities for high school seniors? I'm on day 100, but I'm thinking, yes, we do, Roger, right? What's that? Through Summer Works. And didn't we have, with specific Wagner High School? Didn't we have Wagner High School? Do we have? Yes, we have a direct program with them as well. So, see, I know a little bit. I'm getting there. Does Humana hire people with digital skills even if they don't have traditional credentials? Absolutely we do, because I don't think there are traditional credentials around digital skills. That's what's interesting. Listen, we hire people who don't necessarily have a digital background, because then I bring people into our organization from across Humana that if you have a great attitude and a willingness to learn and you're willing to lean in, I'm going to bring you, come. We got to teach you. We're happy to come teach. And by the way, our job is to make sure that more people across Humana get these skills. So that's part of our mission as well. And so, yes, we hire, and we will hire more, but it takes the right attitude and the right approach, and then we're ready to roll. Let's see. This is really hard doing this reading. What controversial or difficult choices do you and or other leaders make to advance technology more quickly? This is an interesting one, because this is a tough one, right? Because in order, dollars, as you know, don't magically grow on trees. So let's call it someone like Heather shows up with a new organization and says, hey, we might want to try to do some different things and try some new things. Well, there doesn't magically become a pot of money. And so what we have to do is kind of start to evaluate the work in front of us to say, well, there's some investment dollars. The work in front of us, we need to start to evaluate. Well, that work that's in front of us, somebody thinks it's very valuable or it wouldn't be in flight. And so now you start to have conversations with people who feel their work is very valuable, but you're asking them to say, let's put it on pause and put it off to the side to create capacity, both human capacity, people to work on things, as well as dollars to put towards something else. These aren't easy conversations, folks. And for whatever choices you're going to have to make, everybody's going to have these conversations. And oh, by the way, that baby might be yours. And you're going to have to throw your baby out. That's no fun, because you are vested in some of this stuff. And you are really behind it, and you worked a long time to get it on the docket. And you believe passionately and deeply it could do some good. But if it's got 2 more years, remember what I said, if it's got 2 more years before it's ever going to get to a place when you can really use it, or it's been 2 years in the making and it's still not quite there, it's probably worth a reevaluation. So these are tough conversations, but if you can go about it and assume positive intent by all parties and be willing to have an open and honest conversation and let everyone have the debate and nobody takes it personally, then that's the way, that's the environment we all have to be wanting to work in. Why didn't Humana add Studio H in Louisville? That seemed like a great way to attract new talent, even if it would have been hard for a few years. It's a great question, and I hope I kind of started to answer that in the moment. As I said, we are going to bring Studio H here, but here's what you don't know and what we didn't make a big press release about, I guess about 4 years ago when we started the Digital Experience Center. I will tell you that is one of the most impressive capabilities I have seen yet at a company like a Humana. And so again, I come from financial services, very traditional companies. This capability and the people who staff it and how they do their work is as cutting edge as anything you'll see in Silicon Valley or in any major city around the world that has like major technology innovation centers. It is beyond comprehension, how they do their work, how they go about it, the skill sets they bring, the speed at which they move, and the work that they've been able to produce. By the way, not all their work is great, right? It's a test and learn environment. It's not a lab, it's not research and development, but it's a test and learn environment where they're out on the cutting edge of what is out there, building this product and testing and learning and iterating with providers and members along the way. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. And so some of it we have to throw out, but some of it we build and it goes to scale in ways that we never imagined. On Monday, our CEO, Bruce Broussard, is going to be talking. We've got 7,000 leaders who will be pulled together to talk about one of the capabilities they built 3.5 years ago has now been used. It'll be on its 12th iteration around the company, a core capability that the DEC built here in Louisville in partnership with the pharmacy team. And this thing has gone to scale. This will be the 12th time it goes to scale. It's beautiful. And that's the kind of success. That could have been its own company in and of its own right. That's here in Louisville. And that team is the team that we've extended up at Studio H in Boston. Studio H here, we're going to rename the deck to Studio H Louisville. And so we're super excited about it. But this is an and strategy, like I said. I wish I could hire 250 more people immediately here in Louisville. We're going to reskill and upskill folks here, and we're going to get folks here, but we're also going to do it in Boston. We're also going to do it in Dallas, and we're also going to do it in San Diego and San Jose because we need more talent for Humana across the board. Let's see, what have you learned? I got 1 minute. What have you learned about communicating the importance of data and innovation to decision makers who might not be very familiar or comfortable with tech? This has been, I'm not a tech person, by the way, nor am I a data scientist. I am actually a business person, an operations person, who 18 years ago found themselves in the middle of a situation where I'm the operations person. And this is back when I worked at E-Trade, and I was trying to get customers to mail us their checks so that we could post it to the web. The World Wide Web, as we call it then. And it wasn't even digital. So I was digital before digital was a word. And we were trying to build trust with these customers. Just mail us your money. And we were the alternate delivery institution, phone, fax, and web. And what I soon discovered was when things went wrong and like the website went down and people were calling the call centers and like, where's my money? Did it disappear? And you're trying to build trust in a system that has never existed before. I had to learn very quickly what the heck was going on because at the core of it, by the way, those phone calls cost us $7.68. But if you stayed on the web, it was a fraction of a penny. And even though we were spending billions of dollars in advertising trying to disrupt Wall Street, we had no money to run operations. So I had to figure out how to keep this place running. So I'd go into the bowels of technology, into the engineering space, and like figure out what was broken and make those guys crazy. And then when marketing, when said something out was wrong on promotions, I'd have to go figure out and straighten that out and figure out what was going on with the product. And then I figured out how, like, boy, if I just had more data and more information, I could actually, I could find the ripples in the water before they actually became the wave. And so I became that person who could speak everybody's language, and I could start to translate that into actual business speak. And so what you need to be able to do is to be able to speak in plain English. And I'm just smart enough to know how to have really smart people around me. And sometimes when they can't tell their story as effectively as possible, I help them tell the story and do it in a way that business people can then consume and understand. And in some ways, my colleagues couldn't figure that out over the years, and I did. And that's part of why I've been on the forefront of this digital transformation stuff now for the last kind of 7 years. I wish it was all purposeful. It was a little more accidental, but it's been a good ride nonetheless. But thank you guys very much. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.